I'm Ksenia, and thank you for joining me for this special Astro Weather Report. I'm doing an additional one this week simply because there has been quite a lot going on in the world and there's a lot to address astrologically because of that. So thanks for joining me. Now, before I get going on this particular video, a very important one where we're going to be looking at hysteria and immunity. Before I get going on this, I do need to specify I'm not a medical astrologer. That's not my background. Neither am I a mundane astrologer. For those who don't know, a mundane astrologer gives forecasts for the world, global events, and big sort of mass events rather than personal. That is not my specialty, but I do want to break down what's been happening over the last 2 to 3 weeks in the world. It's really important that we look at where all this craziness is coming from. So this is going to be my interpretation of the astrological energy that I can see playing out at the moment. So take it or leave it, use it if you feel like it resonates with you. If it doesn't, let it go and move on to the next piece of information as you seek for answers. So what's been going on in the world? Well, a lot of this is going to be, no fresh news to some people who watch the news, who are in a state of fear and a state of panic. But basically, we've got things are very unusual right now. And it was always going to be an unusual year 2020 because of what's going on in Capricorn. The tremendous, powerful stellium there that is incorporating little old planet Pluto. And when you've got Pluto involved in a mix, it's a rare combination, and you've got these two big giants, interpersonal planets, Saturn and Jupiter. They're coming into the action as well, and now Mars. It's going to be a time, 2020, when these three, Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto, are really changing the status quo. I might point out that you've also got Uranus in Taurus, which is coming into things as well. But it was always going to be quite an interesting and apocryphal year. And of course, we started the year with the bushfires in Australia. That was a big global concern. And now we're moving into this pandemic that there's a lot of fear about, a lot of paranoia about, a lot of people are scared and reacting in mass hysteria. So this is the second kind of phase. There'll be more to come. 2020 is really just getting started. In fact, to be quite frank, the astrological year has not begun yet until after the autumn equinox in Australia and the spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. It's autumn equinox in the Southern Hemisphere, spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere, and that is the beginning of the astrological year. So things will really take on new tones. But I'll be talking about that in my other Astro Weather Report for this week, so do check that out for more information about the beginning of the new astrological year. But here in Australia, look, I was down the street the other day. I had called to go 3 times to the supermarket because I have teenagers and 2 teenage boys, and my God, do they eat. So I had to go to the supermarket 3 times. And in one of the supermarkets I went to on the weekend, the police had to be called because of a fight that broke out between customers over toilet paper, and that's been in the news. There's been elderly people being attacked, and for their toilet paper. Like it is massively insane here in Australia, and I understand there's similar things occurring in other parts of the world, but Australia seems to have been particularly bad. I don't know why, but anyhow, that's what I've observed firsthand. We've seen, because of these kinds of incidents, we've seen supermarkets cracking down and saying only one stack of toilet paper per person. And I just happened to quite fortunately be in a line. I just randomly ended up in this line, not intentionally, that was queuing up for toilet paper and got given a packet of toilet paper. But people are queuing up for toilet paper in Australia, and the supermarkets are enforcing that 1 pack of toilet paper per customer. Also, in Australia, they're opening now for 1 hour a day exclusively for the elderly and the disabled, to allow the elderly and disabled the opportunity to go and purchase toilet paper without being attacked for it, to go and purchase other goods as well. It's not just toilet paper. We've got all sorts of long life milk and noodles and pasta and things like that. People have been trying to return their items, and the supermarkets have said, no, we can't be having this kind of stuff going on. And it astounds me that day after day after day, the shelves, even though they're being restocked, are emptied as people act in hysteria, as people act with great fear about a potential pandemic. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So hoarding is rife in Australia. Quite frankly, I feel like I'm in a Simpsons cartoon, when the crowd goes crazy, kill him or whatever, with their pitchforks, and they chase Homer or whoever it happens to be. And there's no rational common sense applied. It's just people going mass crazy. Now, I do have to say that in the midst of all this hysteria, there's people squabbling over toilet paper and hoarding, and acting from a place of fear. What I have observed is there are some people who are acting with compassion. I was talking to a friend of mine just yesterday who was going to go and visit her neighbours who are quite elderly in the community that she lives in. She's going to go around to all the houses in the Court Bowl and just make sure that they all had what they need, enough of what they needed, and that they were being looked after. So there's contributions that people are making that often go unnoticed and unheralded, and we need to uphold people who are doing that. In fact, we need to take compassionate steps ourselves. I will talk about that a little bit later as well. What do we know about the coronavirus? Well, just so you know, I'm not going to talk about the coronavirus as seen through astrology. This is a video where I want to look at the hysteria that has unfolded and where that's coming from astrologically, and the capacity to create better immunity in your own life from the hysteria, but also, just generally to uplift and level up your own level of immunity to this disease. We don't have an actual date and time for when coronavirus emerged. So we can ask a question and get a horary astrology reading that way at the time we ask the question about coronavirus, yes, but we don't have an actual date to analyze the emergence of coronavirus. So it's very hard, it's very hard to actually look at that in an astrological sense. So instead, I want to look at the behaviors that are now out there and what are some solutions for us all. What do we know about coronavirus? Well, obviously it's a flu, pneumonia-like breathing respiratory condition. I've been speaking to health professionals in my town about this condition and the disease or virus. And it turns out that, in Australia last year, in 2019, 3,000 people died of the flu, the regular flu. This year, authorities are predicting 10,000 people, so a few more than is usually the case. And this is because we've got this new strain that we're not immune to. But we need to keep things in perspective. Coronavirus is actually less infectious and less fatal than polio or the SARS epidemic that occurred. So it's less, lower down on the scale. And we need to remember that. We've been through polio epidemics, and then vaccines were created, and healing, preventative measures were created for that. And obviously SARS was an issue at one point back in the 2000s. So it's not unusual to see these things occurring, and there may very well be a universal reason behind what's going on right now. We'll also explore that a little later on. But I want to ask you, what is the worst that can happen here? Well, the worst that can happen is that you get sick and you die. Now, I'm a Pisces rising person, so I have to say that the ultimate escape from life, i.e. death, doesn't really scare me at all. And I know not everybody feels that way. I know death is fearful for a lot of people. My belief is simply that when we die, we go to the bardo state perhaps, or an intermediary state, or we go back to oneness, and then at some point when our soul is ready, we re-emerge and are reborn, just like the leaves lose their trees, in the autumn, and the leaves come back and re-emerge new and fresh in a new incarnation of that same tree in the springtime. And similarly, I believe our souls are the same. One life will die, but the same soul still exists, the tree still exists, and then we are reborn, reincarnated with a fresh, new chance at life, new life experience, new incarnation, new opportunity to be the incarnation of the divine in a human body, having a human experience. So what's the worst that can happen? We die, as we've probably died many, 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 many lifetimes in the past, and I will be reborn into a new lifetime. Death is simply another part of living. What's the worst that can happen? We die and we're reborn again into a new existence. And in my opinion, the best way to die is to avoid dying in a state of fear, which then gets carried over into the next incarnation we emerge into. Better to die in peace. That's the worst that could possibly happen. Another scenario is you might have loved ones that pass away, but again, recognizing that they are on their journey of their soul and their experience, and that this is part of what needed to play out for them. The universe has our back, and it looks at the big picture perspective, not just this incarnation, but the 800 lives we've already had, and it sees the whole big picture, not just now, and this is just a blip in the process. I know that sounds harsh. To some people that will sound very callous, but this is the idea of reincarnation, that this life is not the end. So if we lose loved ones through this experience, then it's what was meant to happen on their journey to greater enlightenment, greater understanding, greater returning to oneness. We are most likely going to get coronavirus. I think, I've got a little bit of a sniffle this morning. Possibly it's coronavirus, I don't know. My son's home from school at the moment. He's not feeling well. Maybe it's coronavirus. We will undoubtedly, get touches of it throughout the next 6 months or so around the world. But is there a need to be afraid for most people? No, the answer is no. Yes, the elderly and the immune compromised people, that is something to be concerned about because they're more vulnerable. So we should be showing compassion. We should be showing kindness and support and help to those people rather than, being self-focused and grabbing and grasping all that we can for ourselves in hysteria and fear. But for most people, this is going to result in a bout of the flu that they will bounce back from and be able to continue on living. So where you have contact with the vulnerable and the elderly, be respectful and supportive and helpful. And some of the ways that we can be respectful is to simply follow basic hygiene procedures. Wash your hands, don't touch your face. Isolate yourself if you need to because you're sick, and allow yourself to get better. Don't go visiting people or hugging people or kissing people if you're not well. Hello, it's common sense, guys. And the more we follow this, the lesser it's likely to spread all over the place, and the more respect we're actually giving to the vulnerable, to the elderly, to people who are more susceptible of going it hard with this disease. So we're not going to be able to stop the infection, but we can slow its spread. The best thing that we can do is not to panic, but to remain in a state of peace and love as best we can. To be careful, to be kind, to only take what we need and allow others the privilege of having what they need to live as well. And if you want to put things in perspective, here we all are as human beings on the planet, kind of losing our grip, losing our sense of reality over a cold, over a virus that can make us feel a bit sick for a few days, maybe a week or two, when in reality, there is sex trafficking going on in the world constantly at epidemic proportions. There is terrible wealth inequality in the world. We should be getting up in arms about that. The environmental destruction that's going on is appalling. We should be feeling passionate and motivated around those issues. What about child slavery that is rife in the world? What about pedophiles in positions of power? Why aren't we getting motivated around issues like that and concerned and activated around issues that are really detrimental to the human spirit and to the vibration on this planet? That's where, if we're going to direct hysteria into anything, that's where it needs to go, to issues that matter, that can change the vibration of planet Earth, can lift us up to a higher level and grow us as a human consciousness on this planet. Well, astrologically, where is all this coming from right now? Well, let's take a look at my board. This is the board from the placement of the planets on the 10th of March. As you can see, there was a full moon. Hang on, the moon's not in the right spot. There was a full moon in the sign of Virgo. So this is what we were looking at. Let me just explain what's going on. We've got Uranus and Venus conjunct down here in Taurus at around 4 degrees. We have Neptune and the Sun opposing the moon on the Virgo-Pisces axis. We've got Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, and then we have all this action in Capricorn. We've got Saturn at 29 degrees. We've got Pluto there at 24 degrees. We've got Jupiter, we've got Mars, and we've got the nodes of the moon on that axis as well. How does this tie in? Last week's full moon in the sign of Virgo, how does this tie in to hysteria? Well, let's explore this. We've been feeling hysteria it peaked or it came out very strongly last week under the influence of this chart. But it had been slowly building in the news and in the media and in conversations for around 2 weeks before that, from the time when the moon was all the way back here conjunct with the sun in Pisces. New moon in Pisces 2 weeks earlier was kind of when we started to see the momentum of this building more and more and more strongly. So what we're looking at with this chart is actually the culmination point when the moon was full. It had built from the new moon stage and got to its fruition, its fullness, its culmination point here in Virgo. So this was the fullness, the fruition, the growth, the result of the hysteria that had built from 2 weeks before. Now, obviously, it is continuing on. We're in a phase that's leading back to a new moon. But, and where things carry on from here, we'll talk about as in future astro weather reports. But this is where it is coming from. Now, let's explore this chart. Hysteria is always shown from Neptune. Neptune rules hysteria and hysteria of the masses. And here is Neptune, part of this fullness, part of the full moon for a start. Capricorn can also be a revealer of hysteria. And look at all the action that's happening in Capricorn. Very strong. So we've got Neptune, part of the full moon, and we've got a stellium, and in Capricorn, hysteria. Okay, so that was a thing. So I talked in my Astro Weather Report last week about the karma from the Capricorn stellium and where that would be playing out in your life, and asking the question, what have you sown? What have you been planting that is now reaping a harvest for you in your life? And you'll be noticing it now, as I said you would last week. You'll be noticing it now strongly in what is playing out in your life this week too. Hoarding is the next thing I want to look at. And hoarding is ruled by Saturn, to grasp, to hold on to and not let go. Saturn, here at 29 degrees of Capricorn, the final degree of Capricorn. And the 29th degree, the final degree of a sign, is always very important. If you've got lots of final degrees in your birth chart, it means that you're here for a very fated reason and to work on a lot of very important issues in order to evolve and progress in your journey karmically. But when we have a planet such as Saturn at the last 3 degrees, we feel a tension. So tension here at the 29th degree, hoarding going on. We feel a tension, we can feel frustrated about something. So here with this energy, it's 29th degree energy of frustration, tension, like we know something's going to happen. It's the energy of expecting, feeling in the air, something's going to happen, and we just want to get there and get through it. Combine that with that Saturn energy, and it's pretty intense for the world, personally as well, but this is more looking at what's going on in the world. So this frustrated energy pertaining to Saturn, so feeling frustrated and choosing to hoard in order to deal with this inner frustration, this energy of frustration in the world right now. So that is what we're seeing with Saturn at the last 3 degrees. You know something else, when we have a planet, especially a hugely karmic planet like Saturn at the last degree of a sign, do you know what it's telling us? It's telling us there is some karma here that needs to be unraveled. And I spoke again about this last week. But the events that are occurring are fated, are predetermined. The things that happen under a 29th degree influence, especially with a planet like Saturn, refer to things that are fated and predetermined. So no matter what occurs and unfolds, because of this hysteria and the fear about the virus and what have you, no matter what happens, we need to recognize that this is part of the process of humanity as a collective, as a whole, through our journey back to the golden age. That's something I spoke about in the video that I did at the beginning of the year, and I'll try and put a link for that if you want to see all about our journey to the golden age and how things unfold. But it's it's a maturation. Saturn is maturing. We're trying to mature our karma through this process. And unfortunately, the lower manifestation has emerged where we are hoarding things rather than seeking to be in control, have a sense of maturity and duty and responsibility about what's unfolding in the world. We've actually succumbed as a collective to fear, which is also ruled by Saturn, and to the practice of hoarding. Colds. Colds are again ruled by Saturn. So again, there is a fear. There is the hoarding, and we've got Neptune hysteria. That has to do with colds, getting a cold. Here in the sign of Capricorn, Capricorn is connected to colds. And sometimes the moon is connected to colds as well. According to some modern astrologers, the moon can have a triggering effect regarding that. And so hello, moon in Virgo as part of the full moon with Neptune hysteria. Again, another indicator that colds have, fear about colds and health and well-being have been the outcome here. Also, where is the moon? I'll pull him around here so I can point easy. The moon's in Virgo. And what is Virgo? Virgo rules diseases. It has to do with our well-being, our health, our daily routines. So full moon in Virgo, no coincidences there. The moon also has a connection to colds, and it's triggering its fullness in the sign connected to health, well-being, disease, and being in a state of disadvantage. What's interesting is while the sign of Capricorn, the moon, and Saturn can have connections to colds, especially wet colds, and we know that this virus, this coronavirus that everybody is fearful of, is sort of a wet type cold, that wet cough, that wet runny nose and what have you. It's not a dry cough. So it's very likely that the moon is part of the influence here because the moon connects more to things that are wet. It's a watery planet. But despite this, flus, influenza, is actually ruled by Neptune. So hello again, full moon, opposite Neptune, or involving Neptune in the mix. Again, we're looking at influenza. Now, I, for one, love studying rulerships because it broadens and deepens our astrological understandings just so much more. Pneumonia is actually ruled by Mercury or Gemini. Either of those can have an association with pneumonia because that's a chest infection. And Mercury at this stage has been retrograde, and last week turned direct. Thank God. So there was a shift in what Mercury was focused on. And this shift, this turning direct, happened in the sign of the masses, Aquarius. So our thoughts were on mass things. Mercury is our thoughts. In the sign of Aquarius, the hoi polloi, the masses, and to do with pneumonia. Will I catch pneumonia, an infection in my lungs and die? Our thoughts turned outward, while Mercury was retrograding, our thoughts are inward. It's about me. How am I processing? How am I thinking? What's going on inside my mind? And then when Mercury turns direct, our thought processes go outward, looking at the masses, looking at mass pneumonia, thinking about, mass issues. So again, that's tied into what played out last week as well. Viruses and crisis. Well, the word crisis, for those who are familiar with astrology, should trigger what planet I'm about to talk about next. It's Pluto. Pluto rules viruses and Pluto rules crisis. Now, what is really, really interesting, virus and crisis, ruled by Pluto, is actually making, this is quite fascinating and something worth noting if you are in a state of fear about what's going on. This is Pluto here. I'm just going to draw a line coming out of Pluto, sextiling the Sun, and the line, I'll just draw it here, hope you can follow me, sextiling the Sun and trining the Moon. I'll draw an opposition here as well, just so you see the picture. We're creating this wedge shape that occurred. So we've got Pluto, the planet of crisis, making only good aspects to the Sun and the Moon. The planet of crisis, the planet of viruses, is making only supportive aspects to the Moon, colds, in the sign of health, in the sign of disease, well-being, daily routines, how we self-medicate. So there's actually supportive aspect coming from Pluto to that. And there is a smaller scale, but still supportive nonetheless, aspect from Pluto to Neptune and the Sun there as part of this configuration. Pluto also rules hidden things. I want to point out and lay it out there, I guess. I believe that there is something hidden going on about this that we don't know about. Now, a lot of people are talking about the hidden nature of this virus and a hidden nature of, what's unfolding in the world right now as being evil and sinister. I'm not going to dispute that if that's what they're saying, but what I want to point out is this hysteria that unfolded last week. I believe this hysteria, the hoarding, whatever, that something good is going to emerge out of this from society, because this all-powerful Pluto planet was actually providing supportive aspects to this what triggered the hysteria, what has been triggering the hysteria. So I don't know exactly how that might play out, but I think we will find something good emerges out of this. And Pluto is the planet of transformations. Pluto is the planet of composting what's not needed, what's useless, what doesn't serve us anymore, and allowing good things to emerge. So out of this process, good is going to come. When you are afraid, when you're wanting to hoard, when you're feeling hysterical about all this stuff, remember that Pluto is promising something good will come out of this situation. When we look back in years to come, we're going to see how 2020 and all these incidents that are occurring actually paved the way for mass change that was desperately needed. So it might be change that if it comes out of this at a governmental level. Maybe the governments was just handling this situation so pathetically, so hopelessly that heads roll, and big change occurs. Big change might occur to the health system. because of this, and maybe that's very needed. Maybe big change might come to our spiritual practices, and maybe that's very needed in our communities and our society. Maybe there's more compassion that emerges out of this, and we develop more compassionate processes in our health systems, but also in the way we just care for the elderly and the vulnerable. I feel it could happen in many ways. But in years to come, we're going to see this as a turning point, as a catalyst point for change that was very, very needed, and transformation that had to happen. So trust in this. This is the universe has our back, and the planets don't lie. Now, the other thing we want to look at is lunacy, leaving Pluto behind. Well, full moons, usually if you work in childcare, if you work in education, if you work in an ER room, around the time of a full moon, you'll notice people going off their tree a bit more than usual. And that is because full moons can sort of bring out lunacy. Well, hello, what's been happening? Yeah, it's lunacy, So lunacy, full moon in the sign of Virgo. And disease has to do with Virgo, like I said, health, and sort of being less fortunate and disadvantaged in some way. So usually compromised health, or compromised ability to provide for your daily needs through having enough toilet paper, through having enough food. That is also a thing. So this is where I'm seeing that all this craziness has come from in the skies. Now, I want to point out that we have a choice as human beings. Either we succumb to the lowest vibration of the energies that are out there, or we choose. We use our free will to embody the highest vibration possible with these energies. How can we act wisely? How can we be prepared? How can we create immunity is the next phase of what I want to talk about here. Well, obviously the methods that I mentioned earlier are very important. Washing your hands, avoiding contact with people, isolating yourself if you get sick, which I tend to do anyway when I get the flu. It's just a common practice. When we get sick, stay at home. Don't force yourself to go to work. You're not that indispensable. Isolate yourself, wash your hands, don't panic, and all those things, principles that I mentioned earlier, we need to apply. And as I said, I'm not a medical astrologer, but that's just common sense. However, I am an astrologer, and we can look to astrology to give us some support, to help us do things better and lift things up a little. So the first thing I want to mention is compassion. Instead of hysteria, Neptune ruling hysteria, instead of hysteria, how about let's enact compassion right now? Maybe you've got spare time for some reason, or you're quarantined for some reason. Well, maybe with such a shortage of toilet paper, you might like to create your own. Do some shredding of paper or something and make your own toilet paper that you can hand out to your neighbours who might not have enough. Although wait till you're out of quarantine for that. But there are things you can do that show compassion. Check in on, if you're well, check in on people who need support, the elderly, the frail, the vulnerable in your community. Don't come too close. And certainly don't visit if you're unwell. Hello, common sense people. But, look out for those who are less vulnerable, who aren't getting what they need, and support those who aren't in the position of advantage that you might find yourself in. Imagine if everybody in the world chose to serve others, and that's a sign of Virgo. Virgo is service, how we serve. So imagine if we channeled the higher energies of Virgo instead of disease and misfortune. What about if we channeled the energy of service? If everybody in the world did that, we looked out for one another, we helped one another, we were kind to one another, and we did what we could to make other people's lives better, to fix other people's, the problems they're going through at this time. Well, the world would be so much better place, and the vibration and energy level of the earth would just increase so much, coronavirus wouldn't stand a chance. So compassion, service, these are some areas where we can lift and use the higher vibrations of this energy. The higher vibration of Saturn is to have maturity, to be responsible, to carry our burdens, to do our duty by our fellow man. How about we channel that energy instead of hoarding and fear? But one thing I now want to look at in greater depth is immunity. Immunity in a chart is actually, according to many current modern astrologers, seen by the planet Uranus. So where is Uranus in all this? Well, we haven't talked about him yet, but he's down here with Venus, and Venus and Jupiter both happen to rule remedies. That's why I'm wearing purple. Jupiter rules remedies. Purple's the color of Jupiter. Anyhow, Uranus is down here in Taurus with Venus. Uranus at the time of this chart was also at 4 degrees. 4 degrees is the degree of Cancer. It's about home, safety, security, protection. Uranus has a lot to tell us about how we can protect ourselves, how we can create immunity right now. Taurus has to do with the environment, with anything that's natural. So when we've got this planet of immunity in the sign of nature, the environment being natural, well, you can imagine these two go hand in hand. The more natural approach, the more earthy approach you can take to looking after your health and well-being, the better off you're going to be. Immunity combines with naturalness here in the sign of Taurus. And this is also the remedy for us, to be grounded, to be realistic and practical and solid and steady like Taurus is. So ways that we can do this. Generally, this is for everybody. We could be more self-sufficient. Uranus is a self-sufficient, autonomous planet. It's not about, yes, it likes community and rules Aquarius, which has to do with the masses, but it's very much about the individual, Uranus. And so looking after ourselves in a self-sufficient manner, that's the way to go right now. If you can grow your own food, thumbs up for you. If you can fix your own car, lucky you. Don't have to outsource any of that. If you can create your own entertainment, and we all can do that. We've all got YouTube. We can use that at home, Uranus at the 4th degree, the degree of home in the sign of Taurus. Your entertainment's in the home right now. And that's actually a way that you can be immune, like, being at home, not having to outsource, go to the cinema or to the football field. Just watch it at home. We're very lucky in this day and age. Our entertainment can be very self-sufficient. Some people don't think that's a good thing, but in this case, under these skies, I think it is. Pleasure. Pleasure is seen by Venus conjunct with Uranus in the sign of Taurus. Natural pleasures, going for a walk out in the environment and, getting in touch with nature. Digging in the garden can be very pleasurable and cathartic to some people. Growing your own food can be cathartic. It's self-sufficient pleasures where you do it yourself for your own enjoyment. I love to sew. That's a source of pleasure for me, and I can do that. And it's very much a self-sufficiency thing. I've made this dress that I'm wearing. I make my own clothing, self-sufficient clothing, Venus conjunct Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So the more self-sufficient we can be at this time without having to outsource our stuff and what we do, the better off that we will be and the greater immunity we will create in our life. Venus, interestingly, also rules toilet paper. So if you want to make or actually toilet articles is how it's described, but that includes toilet paper. And Venus rules that. So the more self-sufficient you can be with toilet paper, the better off you're going to be as well. Make your own. Collect some leaves. They're flushable. Chop up some catalogs on newspapers and mush them all down and create your own tissue paper out of old papers and what have you, and be self-sufficient with toilet paper ruled by Venus. Some people might think that's ridiculous. It's up to you. But that is a combination that actually works with what we're seeing here. Now, Venus rules food. Uranus is independent. Taurus is natural. Eat as naturally as you can. Eat as much variety as you can. lots of different things that are perhaps not what you would usually have, not mainstream. Uranus is anything alternative. So taking an alternative approach to your food and going as natural as you can, no processed food. Much better to increase your immunity than 2-minute noodles, which are sold out in every supermarket I've been in lately. So you want to increase your immunity, leave the 2-minute noodles on the shelf and go fully natural with your food. Try something a bit alternative to what you would usually do and avoid the processed stuff. I know not everybody, I know a lot of people who watch this are into organics and so forth. So I'm preaching to the converted there in many senses. But think and act progressively as well. This is Uranus. To think, to act in a progressive, visionary, forward-looking manner. Not a fearful manner, but a one that says, right, this is for the greater good. This is going to help the masses. We're getting rid of something in society. We may not see it now, but we will in the future. Think along those positive lines that there is purpose, method in this madness. Think community-mindedly. Uranus rules communities. Help your neighbours. Again, that comes into it. Altruism is ruled by Uranus, and friends are ruled by Uranus. Let's look out for each other. Uranus has connections to air, rules air. And in fact, he was the god of the air in ancient mythology, was thought to have created the earth through the union of air, Uranus, the god Uranus, with Gaia, the earth. But Uranus rules air, breaths of fresh air, breathing work, breath practice, very supportive, fresh and natural. Get out, go for a walk in a natural environment. Breathe in that fresh air and clear your lungs of the old staleness, the office heating that you've been sucking up all day in your office. Go out and walk in the park or go out to the bush or the forest. Breathe. Uranus in Taurus. This is a recipe for immunity, to support your immunity. Uranus also rules detachment. And so by detaching ourselves, we're actually creating greater immunity. Now, separating ourselves, Uranus again. And in our home, 4th degree, the degree of home, or separating ourselves into nature, Taurus. These are methods to create greater immunity, and this is what we are being advised to do. You can entertain yourself self-sufficiently in your home. You don't need to worry about missing out, Being in your home, being in nature, detaching and separating yourself is the way to go right now to increase immunity. Auras are ruled by Uranus, so it's a great time to sit in nature, maybe do an aura meditation. This can actually help create greater immunity for yourself and your body. I will also, just as a side note, point out that Pluto does have a connection to chakras as the ruler of Scorpio. So you might, because of this positivity happening between Pluto and other planets, doing a chakra meditation can also be very beneficial. Clearing your chakras can also help a lot too. Guess what? Uranus rules baths. So having a natural bath in natural oils. Maybe you could put a few drops of patchouli or lavender or frankincense oil or something in your bath, and having a bath in some sort of natural product, natural oil or salts or something that's very natural. Venus being here, taking a bath in flowers, where we put flower petals in our bath. Actually, that can help with immunity. Any sort of beautiful, like Venus has a connection to flowers, and Taurus is nature. So those sorts of things in your bath, Uranus rules baths, in your home at the 4th degree of home, that will help your immunity as well, especially Epsom salts as well. Go bird watching. Uranus rules birds. There we go. Get out in nature, do some bird watching. It'll help your immunity, funnily enough. Venus is indulgence, and Uranus rules bohemian practices. So indulge in some bohemian practices. And I know currently as I'm talking, Venus is not with Uranus, but if you want to up level from this energy of hysteria that's happened last week, then this is what we need to channel, the energies that were here. So indulge in some bohemian practices, painting, music, art, spiritualism, those kinds of things. Very Chiropractors are also ruled by Uranus, so if you want to go see a chiropractor, that can be very good for your immunity as well. And also any other alternative health professionals, healthcare systems, any drugless healing is seen by the sign Uranus too. And the more natural, the better in the sign of Taurus. So if you find yourself feeling low in energy, and don't go if you're sick, lock yourself away and do the isolation thing. But if you're feeling a bit lackluster, getting some sort of maybe acupuncture or, like I said, chiropractic work, or go and see an osteopath or something can be very helpful for up-leveling your immunity right now. Color therapy, great to practice under Uranus as a source of immunity. Wearing colors, like I'm wearing purple for Jupiter right now, but it's actually a form of color therapy to lift my spirits by wearing purple. So look into color therapy. There's heaps of information online, and it can actually help your immunity. Uranus has a connection to colors and immunity. Magnesium is a Uranian method for immunity, from nervous disorders. When we're twitching, when we're nervous, when we can't settle down, have a bit more magnesium. It does calm the nerves. Uranus rules freedom. Now, it mightn't feel very free to you to be detached and isolated at home, but in a sense, you do have freedom. You've got the freedom to do whatever you want within the confines of your home if you're isolated, or if you're not in that state when you're not in lockdown or something, you still have freedom, like to take that drive in the countryside, in the environment, to go and sit by a lake or a river or in the bush or the forest, or freedom to use your freedom for your benefit. Uranus as a source of immunity. I would also add to that, use freedom practices that induce calmness and serenity, very Taurus. Don't use your freedom to, go out and, go to some dance house party or something, but use it for things that calm you, that soothe you, that steady you, that ground you. Use your freedom for those things right now. You will create immunity. Frequencies are ruled by Uranus. Any type of frequency healing or frequency meditation. There's plenty on YouTube, plenty online. You can do a frequency meditation. Tune in to the NASA recorded frequencies of the sound of Uranus or Neptune, or Uranus or Venus or Jupiter. Remedies, healing, immunity. Tune into those frequencies if you want. There's videos with that online too. Frequency healing, magnetic healing, Uranus rules that. Divine healing, Uranus rules that. Any sort of energy healing. I did a video a little while ago about my friend Don, who is a wonderful energy healer who works remotely. He's done some fabulous things for people who are really suffering. I've had so much great feedback from people who've contacted him as a result of that video. Contact an energy healer. That's a very Uranian way to create more immunity in your life. Uranus also has a connection to hypnosis. So go and have a past life regression, or put a sort of a hypnotic meditation on YouTube. There are so many of them out there. You don't even need to leave your home to do this. YouTube's full of them. Any type of trustworthy hypnosis channel, use it for your benefit right now. Uranus has a connection to ankles. So getting massages down there and around your ankles and leg and your lower calves and things like that can be very helpful. Check your metabolism. Uranus has an involvement with metabolism, so do get your metabolism checked if you're at all concerned, and if it needs a boost and an invigoration, it's a great time to do a purge or a cleanse to help boost your metabolism right now. Food we eat was Venus. Uranus is metabolism. In the sign of Taurus, do a natural cleanse of some sort, especially in the last few days of Pisces season. It's a great time to do that. Practice brotherly love. Uranus rules brotherly love. The more you practice that, the greater immunity you will be creating. Consult occultists, consult astrologers like myself or anyone else that you see online that really feels a resonance for you. Metaphysicians, psychiatrists, all these alternative practices, not that psychiatry is that alternative, but it does come under Uranus in modern astrology. So you can connect with people who practice those sorts of things as a source of boosting your energy levels and therefore your immunity. have as much variety as you can. Variety is ruled by Uranus, so variety in what you eat. Lots of colourful foods, lots of fresh, fruits and vegetables and grains and other things like that that are really natural and healthy. The more you can do that and keep variety in your diet, the better your immunity will be as well. Hello, Uranus. But all in all, let's try to be compassionate and charitable right now and serve others, like I said in the beginning, rather than succumb to hysteria. So that's what I wanted to talk about with regard to immunity and ways we can protect ourselves and our immunity levels and really address what's going on in the world at a higher energy level right now rather than succumbing to the hysteria. I want to go through all signs with this though, because I think that would be helpful for people, but this will be a brief whiz through. Let's start with Aries. If you happen to be I'm going to start just looking at my notes here. I am going to actually start with Taurus because that will align with my notes better and make it more enjoyable for everybody. Taurus, you get to go first. Uranus, planet of immunity, falls in your first house. So for you guys, self-sufficiency is the way to go. So what we're talking about here is boosting immunity even more than the general ways I've said in the intro. So self-sufficiency, alternative sort of body work that you want to practice, doing breath work, establishing a sense or drawing on your energies of courageousness, being an innovator, being a warrior, being a pioneer, embracing these archetypes of the first house will help you a great deal in lifting your immunity at this time. So focus on yourself, focus on self-sufficiency and your capacity to thrive and survive in an independent manner, and that will help you guys. Then the second house, we're going to go backwards. We're going to go Aries. This puts our immunity setup, which I talked about in the intro. Please listen to it, otherwise this will not make sense. This is falling in the second house for you. So give love to others, love to self especially right now is a source of immunity for you at this time. Be in nature, get as natural as you can, wear natural clothes, eat natural foods, be in as natural an environment as you can, walk barefoot on the earth, lie out under the stars and be present with the environment. This is actually going to help you with your immunity. For Pisces rising people like myself, the immunity planet is falling in the third house. You really need to have listened to the intro for any of this to make sense, peeps. So if you've jumped to this point, I'd just encourage you to go back and listen to the intro so that all of this makes sense. But your immunity, guys, is best seen by the third house at the moment in your life. And so you might like to journal to get rid of any anxiety. Writing things out is a very cathartic way to deal with fear and hysteria. Breath work is also good for those of us who are Pisces rising. Taking regular walks, particularly walks in nature, very, very helpful at this time. Sorry, just checking my notes. Creating healthy relationships. If you've got any relationships, especially with siblings or neighbors that are out of whack, that are not in a good state, seek amends, make restitution, and that is actually going to be, if you can, we can't always do that, but where possible, make amends and restore friendships and have healthy networks. Can also be a source of helping your immunity to thrive. One thing to watch for Pisces people is too much mental overstimulation. That's not going to help your immunity, so do be conscious and careful of that. Okay, so for Aquarius rising people, this is putting your immunity planet currently as it transits in the fourth house. And so I hope you watched the intro to this video, because otherwise this is not going to make sense. There is so much more applicable, extensive information in the intro to this video, so do check it out, or this is just going to be a piece of fluff and a waste of time for you. not that it's fluffy information, but it really needs to be bolstered by everything that I've said in the intro. But here in order to create greater immunity, everything that I've already spoken about, very important for you, but heal relationships with mother and mother figures if you are an Aquarius rising person. This is a source of immunity for you. Connect with your mother, be with your mother, or the maternal line in your family, or even just the family in general is helpful to increasing your immunity. Watch for any unhelpful emotions, guard against unhelpful emotions, and seek steadiness, seek the natural environment and healthy food and diet and so forth if you find your emotions are starting to go downhill fast, okay? Invigorate your domestic environment in some way. Uranus is invigoration, so you might like to move the furniture around. You might like to, clean everything from head to foot and give it a fresh going over. That is going to help your immunity actually in the home. I just also, with Uranus in your 4th house, Aquarius people, just watch out for electrical issues too. Not that that's going to be applicable to everyone. It depends where your IC is, but it wouldn't hurt to sort of just check electrical appliances as well and how they're functioning, because that can affect your immunity too right now. Capricorn rising people, please watch the intro to this, because otherwise this is not an extensive all signs review, and what I'm talking about now will make no sense at all if you haven't got the bolstering information that I spoke about in the intro. But for Capricorn rising people, your immunity planet is currently transiting through the 5th house in your chart down here. And so what this means is that by being creative, by expressing your feelings through hobbies, through performance, through a bit of art or something, is a source of creating a greater vibrational energy in you that will create better immunity right now. Detach with your children, detach with your lovers, remove yourself from society in some way, and that will also help your immunity by connecting, like playing board games with your kids or going for a walk in the bush with your lover or something. These are sources of raising your vibration and increasing, therefore, your immunity. Fill your life with as much pleasure as you are able to right now. You guys are lucky, Capricorn rising, who wouldn't want to do this as a source of immunity. And, as much pleasure as you can manage, even if it's in your home environment, because, if you have to go into lockdown or isolation, create pleasure in that environment. Not, woe is us, we're locked down in our home or whatever. Create joy and you will increase your immunity. Okay, Sagittarius rising people, this is putting your immunity planet in the 6th house. Now, I need to point out, it's actually really important that you've watched the intro to this video. I am not going into great detail with each sign. I'm just adding to the important information for everyone that I spoke about in the intro. So for you guys, Sagittarians, it's easy. You need to watch your diet. You need to watch your digestion. You also need to watch your daily routine. Create a healthy daily routine and use some alternative practices. So maybe do some alternative self-medication, such as listening to some energy vibrations online, doing energy vibrational healing, or doing a past life regression work, which is ruled by Uranus. Perhaps you might also like to increase your immunity by doing color therapy. Anything in your daily, everyday routine, the stuff that I spoke about in the intro to this video, if you incorporate that into your daily routine, you'll actually increase your immunity. Like I said, healthy, fresh diet, Uranus in Taurus right now. Detaching from enemies and situations where you're dealing with enemies, people who are bringing you down, people who are making life hard. The more you can detach and push them out of your life, switch off from them, the greater your immunity and your vibration will be. Like I said, alternative health practices are very good here, going and seeing a chiropractor, that sort of thing, or an energy healer. Maybe, and also domestic animals. Connecting with pets right now, looking after your chooks or cuddling your dog, or these things will help lift your vibration and create greater immunity. Okay, the next sign, just change my notes. Next sign, Scorpio. As I said, I'm saying for each of these signs, please watch the introduction. What I'm talking about here is just such a light touch over and above all the substance that I've given in the intro for where all the difficulty in the world is coming from right now and how to increase your immunity. So please watch the intro. This is just specifically for Scorpio people. These are the additional things that you can do, but you want to know all the good stuff. So check out the intro. It's for Scorpio people, your planet of immunity is falling in the 7th house. So it's really important to focus now on connecting with others. Now that might seem hard when you're in lockdown and isolation, but we have the internet, we have telephones, we have iPads, you can reach out and connect with others. So do that. Enjoy sophisticated influences in your life, even if this is in your own home. Because that's what the 7th house represents, our sophisticated, more cultural experiences. So have dinner, cook a nice meal, do it by candlelight, enjoy a sophisticated cultural kind of environment in your home. This will increase your immunity. It will lift your vibrational energy and create more immunity in you. So connecting with others, reaching out, talking. And if you're not in lockdown, go and see friends or go and connect with, have lunch with your husband or your wife down at the park or something together. Be in nature with your Taurus rules nature. Be in nature with your partner, and in doing so, connecting with others, it's going to lift your vibrational energy and increase your immunity. Libra rising people, please watch the intro to this video. Otherwise, this is just a skim through, and you've missed, if you don't watch the intro, you've missed all the important juicy information. So please check that out. This is just a light look at other ways to increase our vibrational energy right now, and therefore our immunity, because your immunity planet for you guys as Libras, and that's me, I'm a Libra moon. You can look at sun, moon, or rising. Rising is the most important, but this is falling in our 8th house. So this is kind of fun. Your immunity can be increased by experimenting with sex. Uranus is to experiment. This is the house of sex. I'd encourage you to do it in natural ways. Taurus is anything natural. So, avoid foreign objects, and that sort of thing. But experiment. Maybe going to have sex in the bush or out by a lake or something, or you do something a little bit different. Add some variety, mix things up in the sexual arena. And this includes if you're single as well. You don't have to actually, sex is not always with a lover. So, you can actually incorporate that if you're single also. Focus now on your sexual health, and that can actually really increase the vibration of your body and therefore your immunity. Eliminate waste of all sorts in your life. So you might literally want to eliminate waste through having an enema or purging in some way. Detoxing, laxatives. This is actually going to increase your immunity. That's the 8th house. So preferably natural ways of doing that are going to be helpful. But for you guys, that can actually make you more immune. But purging of anything in Taurus is the luxuries of life and our clothes, our food. So you might need to do a purge of your cupboard right now. Get rid of any excess shoes and clothes and handbags, and clean out that man cave that you've got and all those old tools that are rusting away that you don't ever use. Get rid of them. Do a complete purge of your environment. Taurus is your environment right now. And you can actually, through doing so, lighten your life and increase your immunity. Okay, Virgo people. For Virgo rising people, well, your immunity planet is falling in the 9th house. I want to point out, if you're Virgo rising, please listen to the intro to this video. This is a very light look individually at each sign. The real substance, the real meaty stuff is in the intro, okay? So you'll be missing out, and this will in many cases not make much sense if you haven't watched the intro to this video. So for you guys, your immunity planet's in the 9th house. You need to look to other cultures, especially alternative other cultures for well-being. Maybe you need to get some acupuncture. Maybe you need to change your environment, by shifting your furniture around to be more in line with feng shui, or maybe do some tai chi. But health practices that are from other cultures or alternative, non-mainstream ways and are more natural are definitely the way to go right now. So incorporate other belief systems, that into your immediate environment and into your life right now, and it's actually going to raise your vibration. The level of vibration in your body will lighten up, and you will actually create more immunity, creating a different energy flow in your home. Uranus is at the 4th degree, the degree of home. A different energy flow in your home, say by using another cultural practice like Feng Shui, that can actually really help if you are Virgo rising, with lifting your energy and creating more immunity. Reaching out and exploring other philosophies is also a good thing now as well. You might study up on Epicurus, and you might be able to incorporate some Epicurean practices and principles into your life that can actually raise your vibration and increase your immunity. So look into the more natural philosophies. You've got Taurus here, so the more natural the better. Epicurus is a brilliant one for that sort of thing. And utilize the philosophies of great teachers to provide you with some information in order to change your life and create a greater vibration in your body and a greater immunity. Leo rising puts the immunity planet in your 10th house. Now, I do want to point out that you need to listen to the intro to this video. If you want the full juicy information, you're not going to get it in this section alone. Listening to the intro, it's the substance. This is the icing on the cake for you as an individual, as a Leo person. So you need to look to alternative sort of leaders, alternative leadership right now. Now, that doesn't mean you follow blindly anyone who comes along. But similarly to what I just said about the 9th house people, you can learn a lot and apply a lot of beneficial things to your life by researching leadership that's more natural, more holistic, and applying it to your life. For example, Epicurus, a wonderful philosopher from ancient Greece, is worth exploring. He's a wonderful leader. And this is the house of authority figures and leaders, that you can employ his strategies that will actually help lift your level of vibration and therefore lift your immunity. Taurus is also anything natural, which is why Epicurus is a good fit with that. We can also think about the legacy that you're creating the world. Is it a healthy one? You can focus your attention and thoughts there, and perhaps look to create an alternative, unusual, bohemian, or very unusual kind of legacy in some way, very Uranus, that will lift your energy and create a greater buoyancy of spirit, creating therefore greater immunity in your life. This is the house of money from foreign countries as well. So, you can actually buy and purchase things from other countries right now. You might look to buy some herbs from another country. In the sign of Taurus, anything natural. You do have to watch for quarantine bits and pieces as well. But, the money you spend in getting things from foreign cultures can actually help your immunity at this time. Taking care of your joints, very important in this area of the chart. Visiting your partner's home or family, because this house has connections to the partner's, your marriage partner usually, or business partner or committed partner's home, where they come from, their heritage, their roots, their lineage, their community. So you can actually be benefited immunity-wise by visiting your partner's family, home, community, the town they come from, that sort of thing. So I'd encourage you, if you're looking to increase your immunity and vibrational level, do take some of those approaches. Okay, Cancer people. For you guys, the immunity planet falls in the 11th house. Now, I do want to encourage you, please watch the intro to this video. It has the substance. This is just the icing on the cake for you as an individual, bit of fluff on top. But the real meat of this video is in the intro, and it applies to everyone. So here, the immunity that you carry can be buoyed up and increased. The vibrational level of your body can be buoyed up and increased by getting support from friends at this time and having group alliances. Now, if you're in lockdown, that doesn't mean that you need to leave home and go be with friends. You can connect online. This is also a house connected to the internet, and Uranus is here. Uranus rules the internet. So joining groups online, discussion groups, forums, jump on my comments section down below and have a good discussion about astrology with someone. By doing this, you'll lift your vibration, lift your energy levels, and create greater immunity in your own life. If you can, and you're not in lockdown or something, enjoy life with friends at the moment. Go, have friends over for lunch or something, or go and meet in the park or meet in the bush or go for a sail on a lake or something in the environment. Taurus rules the environment, so be with friends out in the natural world, and this is a really good support system to utilize for your own immunity. Connecting, like I said, with groups online and networking as well. These are your keys to lifting your vibrational level and creating a greater immunity in your life right now. Gemini peeps, you guys are the last one. So beautiful Gemini people, I just want to point out, please listen to the intro to this video. Don't just, you may have just skipped to this point, but you're only going to get the bare minimum here, the icing on the cake, and not the sponge with the jam and the cream that's that you could have. So please listen to the intro because it goes into greater detail. It's got the juicy information that applies to everyone about hysteria and immunity right now. But for you, the extra little bit that you guys can do to lift your immunity levels is by focusing on your immunity planet in the 12th house. 12th house rules large animals. If you have the opportunity to go and, pat a horse or ride a horse or go to the zoo, if it's not in lockdown, do so. Be, lifted up by engaging with larger, non sort of, dogs and cats and stuff, the larger types of animals. That is actually a resource you can use to lift your vibration and create greater immunity. Isolating yourself, obviously. For you Gemini people, the more, I know you're social, pardon me, I know you like to connect and network and talk and be with people. But right now, if you want to increase your immunity, being in some sort of isolation is actually very beneficial for you guys with your immunity planet in the 12th house. So, you can escape to hidden places in nature. This is Taurus, is this sign that this immunity planet is in. So escape to nature, go out in the bush, go out in the environment and be there and meditate. And meditating is a very 12th house thing. Meditate, be still, do yoga, focus on spirit out there in nature. And this is going to increase your immunity levels. Also, attending clinics. Clinics are ruled by the 12th house. So if you need to, if you're sick, you may need to go to a clinic, and that's actually going to help if you're sick, your immunity time is gone, obviously, but you'd be worth visiting a clinic if you do get sick and you're a Gemini person. It will help you to get better. Foot rubs, acupuncture on your feet, reflexology, these are also great things for you to do that will lift your vibrational energy and therefore allow you to have a greater resistance and resilience and immunity to disease, along with everything that I spoke about in the intro to this video. So paying attention to the feet. Feet are ruled by, have connections to the 12th house. And so doing natural measures, like I said, a foot rub or something, or a massage on your feet is very, very helpful. So I hope this video has been beneficial for everybody. These are difficult times, they're strange times, but it is a shifting energy. We are moving from an old way of being into a new way of being. So it's nothing to be afraid of. It's actually something to be excited about, thankful for, joyous about, because we're creating a whole new world out of this. It's really the birth pains that we're going through in 2020. We're being birthed into a wonderful new way of being. So keep your perspective high, keep your vision on what could be beautiful out of all this, and know that we can come through this with flying colors. Join me as I say a quick prayer. Energy of love in the universe. May this message be a blessing to people. Help us to see through the hysteria, through the craziness, and see the world with eyes of compassion, eyes of love, and eyes that seek to help and lift up, not to hinder and not to create more worry and fear and detriment. Help us to be wise in our actions, help us to be mature in our interactions with other people, and help us to be representatives of love here on the planet. And so it is. God bless you all. Stay safe. I send you my love.